Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Citizen Central. I hope the audio is working because we have some trouble with this on a regular, but I'm pretty sure it is. I got some things figured out. Hope you're all having a good week, a good day, a good month. We have been in the mix for a little while, Star Citizen related. 3.18 was supposed to come out around October, September-ish of last year, given our first expectations, and was delayed quite a bit. It then launched recently, about a week or two ago in March, to a lot of problems. And it kind of just highlighted the difficulty of Star Citizen, the frustration due to stability and glitches. And today I brought on a few fellow YouTubers who cover the game and talk about some of the intricacies of the features and development to give their own opinions on what they think of the launch, what they think of the state of the game, kind of where it is and if it should be there considering the alpha label and the way they market it and all that stuff. I'm sure this conversation isn't going to get on anybody's nerves and it won't be controversial at all. But as always, we want to hear your thoughts in the comments, so please let us know down below. But I'd like to thank and introduce my guests today. Welcome, folks. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Say, I'm doing great. Showed up on time for once, which is more than I can say for 318.
I appreciate that. No cookies, though, unfortunately.
No cookies.
It's never a good podcast without cookies. Today with me, I've got Jack Axton, TenPoundFortyTwo, and Eradicator, all who have been doing content for some time now. I'd like to give you guys a chance to formally introduce yourselves before we jump into the deep end with this one. So without further ado, Jack, could you start us off? Let us know what you do, where your content comes from, what you focus on, why are you a box?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, name's Jack Axton. Do a lot of streaming and occasional video on YouTube, mostly focusing on trade and the trade economy within Star Citizen. However, that has been in the gutter for quite some time. I am a box because I am very lazy about picking up a camera. The cargo comes in boxes, so that is why I am a box.
I like it. Honestly, the box brings me a lot of feelings of endearment. It's got like a good history in Star Citizen, so you picked a good icon. Are you going to do a face reveal soon though? Like, we want to see the real Jack.
I mean, I've actually, okay, so I've got a camera in the process of arriving. It will be set up eventually. Like, it's mostly just because I've been lazy. It's not like a fan of the opera or Quasimodo or whatever. It's just I am lazy, and that will finally be corrected for certain things. But yeah, no, totally, there's going to be one.
I get it. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you for joining today. All your content's on YouTube, correct?
That is correct. With the occasional joke on Twitter, please do not follow it. It's just for dumb jokes.
You should just make it a novelty account about boxes, the difficulties of a box in Star Citizen. Just tweet about that.
You know, it's actually not a bad idea. I might do that.
Might be worth it. TenPoundFortyTwo, thank you. Who was actually does quite a bit of the editing on the main Space Tomato channel, so we do get to talk about this stuff occasionally. Thanks for joining me though today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I am enjoying the playing of 318 that I've got to do so far. So yeah, it's been an interesting time to play and make videos about Star Citizen. But yeah, I normally make videos about performance stuff and how to get your PC in some sort of shape to play the game. So yeah, it's been an interesting time, and there's some good stuff. There is some good stuff in 318, but
oh yeah,
only if you can get in.
Yeah, that's the tough part. If you are looking for a explanation about how your computer is going to run the game, besides the telemetry page, which is probably the first place you should go, TenPoundFortyTwo's YouTube channel is freaking fantastic for learning if you can actually get the right frames. I love the recent one on the Gen 12 improvements. Thank you for that. Made me feel better about Gen 12.
Yeah, it's been good. It's the live version of Gen 12 is good. So yeah, it's good.
It's good. And Eradicator,
oh, hello.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight.
Of course.
So
How are you doing?
I've been better, unfortunately, but I'll be fine for for the podcast. Yeah, so I'm Irad, or if also Eradicator. I've been making content for Star Citizen since 2018. I usually do gameplay, news, and sometimes opinion pieces.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us as well. And you recently just did a little bit of a rebranding, right?
Yes. That's because when I started the game, I thought I would be doing a lot of PvP and combat, and turns out I enjoyed non-combat activities better than combat, so the name was not so appropriate anymore.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, I honestly, we've been looking at combat improvements for such a long time, like combat balances and weapon stuff and shields and all this stuff. It's so nice to see things like tractor beams and engineering and salvaging getting the spotlight lately. And I think a lot of people are realizing more and more that like they aren't actually going to be shooting guns as much as they thought in Star Citizen.
There's just so much to do. It's not just about combat. That's right. There's exploration is also a thing now in 3.18 with all the wrecks that you can find and the things that you can get inside. It's gonna be even more so in 3.19. It's just getting richer and richer.
Yeah, gosh, I can't wait until. I feel like the one thing that's really now stopping exploration is just the ability to place a marker, because there's things to find now and reasons to find them. It's great. Hopefully they do that this year.
Yes, well. You can. There are ways to work around. Like you can kill yourself, for example, and have a marker for your dead body. But yeah, it's not very convenient, right?
That is probably not a super consistent profession. You just go out into space, kill yourself, and then tell everybody to go to your dead body. Well, thank you, all three of you, for joining today. Our fourth guest is going to be Empty Space. Oh, they're out there near Microtech. It's a good part of space, but it is empty. Regardless, we got a good group here. So let's get into it. First question I want to ask you guys is if you have, I think we should, set the stage. Have you played a game in alpha before, besides Star Citizen?
Yes.
Which one was that?
Oh god, now it's an open-ended question. No, I did a lot of Dauntless back in the day, which is pretty much like a very basic Monster Hunter style game. So alpha for something like that is a bit different than a Star Citizen alpha, but you see some ugly things, you see some rough patches.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there on the answer, Jack, because I've just been told via live chat after somebody has greatly supported the podcast. I'm seeing that it is your birthday today.
Don't listen to those charlatans. Don't. Okay, no.
You should have got the cookies.
No. Okay, no. I bet I know who it is, and according to them, every single day is my birthday. So don't listen to these lies and falsehoods.
I mean, I was on your stream a few weeks ago, and it was definitely your birthday then too. So
yeah,
I believe them.
Exactly. Like it's. I don't know if you've ever seen Happy Death Day, but every day I wake up and it is my birthday.
Happy birthday. That sounds much better. 10 Pound, have you played any alpha games before? Games that were being built out in like this manner?
Wow. So I don't know if you played it. If you haven't, people get confused a bit by the name, but RimWorld. Played RimWorld before?
No, but I know about it. I've heard of it.
Yeah. RimWorld, I love it's a great game. But that technically was in alpha for years. It's tricky, the mix between what does alpha mean? Well, we're going to get into this, and early access, but they would release alphas of that. And the thing that's probably quite similar to Star Citizen is that they just constantly were releasing features, and so the game changed quite dramatically over time. The thing that was different from Star Citizen is that it felt generally pretty stable, and it's obviously just nowhere near as complex a game. It's kind of like a management colony management sim sort of game. So and single player. Yeah, so it's just much more straightforward, and the sorts of issues we've seen with 3.18 and in the past with Star Citizen, it didn't see that. But it's interesting thinking now going forward and looking at the last few months. Star Citizen does seem to actually getting more and more features more and more regularly. Like obviously the new stuff about the tractor beam detachments and everything. It feels like it's actually making progress, and RimWorld was quite like that. It came a long way over the time it was in alpha, technically.
That's kind of how I remember a few prominent games in sort of the last decade, maybe the teens. I don't even know what we call them. The 20 teens, we'll say, were alpha for a while. I think like both Warframe and Fortnite were like they called themselves alphas for years, right? Even though they were pretty stable.
Yeah, it seems to just mean different things for different companies, but yeah. I think even something like Minecraft was technically early access / alpha for years before. Yeah.
So it's a pretty wide-ranging title to give a game, it seems.
Yeah, and some games come out and you think, well, maybe this is an alpha. So things like Mass Effect Andromeda, maybe things that maybe should have stayed in development a bit longer, or Cyberpunk, maybe, where you think we're kind of just doing some testing for them here. But yeah.
Eradicator, how about you? Star Citizen, your only alpha, or have you done it before?
Well, there's another game that I played. I just checked before the stream. It's still in alpha. That's BeamNG Drive, which is a driving game. And
I haven't heard of it.
It's quite obscure, but it's actually very interesting. They're basically trying to recreate the driving sensations with the most fidelity possible, and that's really the only driving game that I've ever experienced in which I really feel like I'm really driving a real car with my steering wheel. As opposed to, for example, the Forza Horizon, where it still really feels arcadey, or maybe some other games that are too racing oriented. So that's something that I really like. But yeah, it's just like Star Citizen. They always add new features, new functionalities, better graphics. They just transition from 32 bits to 64 bits, just like Star Citizen also. But yeah, it does feel sometimes like, especially with the bigger maps, that the frame rates get lower. Basically, all of the drawbacks and inconveniences that we're having with Star Citizen, you also have them with BeamNG. But just like with Star Citizen, you get to see how the game changes and evolves towards the final vision of what it's going to be, and it's a very similar experience.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird, the term of alpha, and this will be what we talk about next. It's weird because so many of these games use it in different ways and mix it with like the early access term, and it's hard to get an idea of what is actually meant by alpha, because some people use it by its technical literal sense, and then some people just kind of throw it on there. We'll go back the other way, I guess, in terms of who wants to answer this, but Eradicator, what exactly does a game being an alpha mean to you? What do you expect, I guess?
Well, I tend to be the kind of person who likes to stick to the literal definitions of things. So for me, alpha is still a state where they are implementing new features without necessarily focusing on bug fixing or polishing, which is something that should be coming in beta. So it's all about putting new features, making sure that they work as intended, and trying those new features. Well, again, later more features will be coming in, so it's still like a heavy work in progress,
How about
like
you, TenPound? Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Never mind.
No, please keep going.
So it's like, imagine a road, for example. Let's imagine a road construction. The alpha would be where it's all flattened, but there's still the gravel, right? Whereas the beta would be when they put the macadam, but you don't have the paint. And then the final version, the release version, is when the cars can finally go.
Oh, and it's so smooth. When they finish a new road, it's so nice. Sorry.
Right. So that's how I would see the it looks like the game, but it's still rough, and they're still putting more features on top of it.
Yeah, it's definitely rough. I'll give you that one. TenPound, how about you? What exactly does the alpha term mean to you when you see it in a game?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Rad there. I think the funny thing with Star Citizen is that some of the stuff that is being developed is this kind of idea of pre-alpha. So it's not just features that are getting chucked in; it's like core fundamental engine parts that you wouldn't necessarily know. You wouldn't normally say they were part of an alpha. So yeah, it's a funny. It's funny. CIG, I think, have stopped using the term pre-alpha. I don't know how. I think they refer to it just as an alpha now. But it is a weird scenario where it kind of it's nowhere near beta, obviously, but it kind of straddles between getting the basics done. That if you were building a game, you would normally get all the kind of techie stuff together and make sure everything works, and then develop on top of that. Whereas obviously, we know that CIG are kind of building the, I don't know what the analogy is, but building the bus as we start moving on it or something like
that. Yeah, they are putting down the absolute basics for some of this stuff. And that's actually a good point that you made about the pre-alpha thing. Outside of what they call it, would you still consider what they're doing to be pre-alpha kind of stuff?
I think some of it is. I think, yeah, completely reworking the back end as they are as we speak, and all the PES stuff is kind of technically pre-alpha sort of stuff. Is you wouldn't call some of the stuff that they're developing an alpha. It is just fundamental tech stuff, and obviously the big one is server meshing, which is going to take however long it's going to take. So I think, yeah. It's so funny. CIG just change what they want to call it when it suits them, don't they? Sometimes it's pre-alpha, sometimes alpha, sometimes it's live service. And I guess they've probably earned the right to do that. Literally earned the right to do that. So
yeah. Is it up to them or the community? I mean, obviously it's up to them since they're making the game. But like, what do you think people? What definition would you encourage people to go by? What they say or what we see with our own eyes?
Ugh. I think the best thing is just to call it Star Citizen and just accept whatever you get.
That's the easiest way to go about it.
Too much time, yeah.
Jack, what were you about to say something about alpha?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with TenPound there. I didn't want to encroach if you got more there, TenPound.
No, go.
Okay, so I can't believe I'm actually going to say this in support of this, but
oh boy.
I feel like it is an alpha with an asterisk, with caveats, because okay, so they're still building the groundwork for a lot of systems. Like they are building the bones before they get the guts in, like anything refined. But at the same time, while doing that, it has to be pretty, because it has to be something that works. And for a game that is as visually, I don't use the word stunning. Stunning feels like I'm actually selling the product.
It is stunning. It is stunning.
yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty. A game is visually pretty as Star Citizen. It's like, okay, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the alpha videos for like Sea of Thieves, where all the characters were basically just like
little blobs.
Yeah, like blobs, or like sticks with like a little smiley face drawn on them. Like that's an alpha. That is a definitive alpha right there. Like all those very basic things they had. It was ugly, but that's because they just had to have placeholders to make it work. Star Citizen is a game that has alpha mechanics with beta graphics because they have to use that to keep selling it, because it's packages. An alpha is also as a games as a service and a live service. So I'm going to say alpha with asterisk, because you can't put a placeholder stick in a trailer.
It's a good point. That's part of why it takes so long, because they have to keep making it so playable while they're still also trying to do some of these ridiculous things, right? Like if we weren't actually getting into the 3.18 patch, they wouldn't be spending 2 weeks trying to make sure it can run perfectly fine right now. They would be moving on to the next thing and making sure it's built out. So it is kind of interesting to see how the idea of just building the game to build the game changes when you start to consider people playing it live. Do you guys, anybody else feel that way? Like it's...
Yeah, but at the same time, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. At the same time, they wouldn't be able to also create or implement some of these features and make them work without having all of the player base that they have, and that's also why they pushed. Well, that's what they said, at least, but I think we can believe them. That's why they pushed 3.18 to live eventually, because they couldn't. They went as far as they could go with the PTU, but then they needed more people to come here to make sure that then the backend services would be working or not. And eventually, if they did not, so they still need to have that pressure that we are putting here as we all try to log in, so that then they can find ways to make their backend services work with this amount of people too. And for that, they need to make the game look good so that they can attract as many people as possible. Because can you imagine they had developed the game with placeholders, closed alpha, no one knows what's going on, and all of a sudden it gets released and boom, nothing is working.
Yeah.
Because
well, that's like
they wouldn't have had they wouldn't have had the testers to try this out, right? So that's it goes both ways. It's like a double-edged sword, They at the scale that they are trying to create the game, they cannot do it in the
oops, lost you on.
And then they'll placeholders. They have to get the player involved because it's just that massive. It's never been done before.
Yeah. Apologize to everybody. We dropped connection a little bit just there, so I think it froze, but we're good. But I agree with you. Like the idea of the game needing to be a place that can be playable and work well is it's a balancing act, right? They have to keep it playable and interesting so that people are buying in, but they also need to keep building out the features. It's funny how often I see comments or threads or like across all social media, you'll see people who are like, please stop developing features and fix the game. And then like two comments down, you'll see somebody else be like, oh my gosh, why are you taking so long on features? Add more faster. It's like they have a crazy balancing act to try and do. And it's got its ups and downs. But like, imagine if a game like Anthem had open alpha development. Like that would not have been as terrible as it was when it came out.
Wow, you had to go Anthem. Wow.
I mean, there's a lot we could choose from. There are so many games in the last 6 years that could have benefited from open development because players can, like you said, they can test it. They can try the patch, try a feature and be like, hey, this sucks, fix it. And then the company has, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 2 years to try and reimagine it. And it can extend the development time, but it does help these features be a little bit better in the long run.
SimCity 2013. If you play that game, that's how it was. It ruined their franchise.
Yeah. I mean, now we have City Skylines coming out and taking with the sequel, taking that cake. But yeah, so there is a whole experience to be had with Star Citizen outside of just playing the game. Like there is the idea that we're testing it, we're giving feedback, like talking about it. It's a whole thing. So going into the next question I have for you then, if you consider like these behind the scenes videos we get on the week or the live talks with the developers, the conversations, the bar citizens, all of the stuff that comes with kind of following the project. Obviously these things are for more hardcore fans, but like considering all this stuff, what exactly do you expect from Star Citizen? What keeps you interested? Is it just playing the game or does that other stuff count as well? Anybody can. Open forum.
I'll start. Playing the game, I'm so impressed with you guys who play the game.
I managed to log in this week.
Ooh,
that's a start.
Hold on, hold the phone.
For guys who stream and make content about playing the game, man, I've got so much sympathy for you. I basically spend all my time doing kind of performance testing, and that is hard enough. But I can't imagine trying to play it as a main game at this stage. I think it's getting closer, and I think some of the stuff that's in 3.18 has really pushed things along. But I'm in awe of the people who play this game as their main game that they get home from work from, and then they fire up Star Citizen. They're like, I'm going to play this for the next 4 hours. Like that's tough to do.
And you need 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours. You'll met your friends by then, and then you can log off at that point. But
yep.
yeah,
it can be tough to try and play it as a regular game, even tougher to try and shoot videos. Oh my gosh, the amount of times you have to just like restart when you're trying to get a video. I mean, you're testing performance stuff, so you're also having to deal with that, right?
Yeah, servers crashing and all sorts of stuff. But yeah.
Like, also just getting on location alone to shoot video in Star Citizen can be so time consuming too.
Yeah.
And then waiting for the sun to rise when you need it to be at daylight.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Oh man. I mean,
sorry. Go ahead, Tomato.
No. You please.
Well, like, okay, so I'm gonna go back in time here just a little bit. There's a tabletop game, like an old, paper RPG tabletop called Traveler, and it is basically your generic space tabletop game. Similar to like D&D, but it's based in space. It's more, no magic, just all sci-fi, and it is a game that I have loved. And ever since then, I have wanted an actual video game similar to Traveler. And I feel like Star Citizen is that closest thing, like building your own story, making your own connections, sitting down, doing something, and at the end of the day, maybe not quite achieving that thing that you meant to, because let's be honest, things go pear-shaped all the time in Star Citizen, but I mean, that's half of a good story, and what I want that to be is to be able to make those connections with people, build that story out in Star Citizen, and at the end of the day, when I log out, be satisfied with what I've done, or at the very least realize that, hey, maybe I could have done something better, but yeah, that was nice. I just want to be able to enjoy myself at the end of it.
Yeah. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to the game. There are obviously hardcore people who want to do like logistics for 4,000 SCU of cargo across a system and like host 50 versus 50 player battles and all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people, like you said, Jack, just imagine themselves living in space and like going about your day doing things in space that are kind of satisfying, but made so much more interesting because it's dynamic and in space. I joined for that as well.
I mean, the freelancer commercial got me with that Space Forward,
The one with they were like truck, it was kind of truck style commercial.
You got 2 dual colloid ion engines for maximum fuel efficiency.
Yeah,
while
that's
keeping
a good
your
one.
sig low.
Yeah, that was a good commercial. I hope that they go back to kind of differentiating their ads a lot because of their whole in-lore commercial thing. Let's talk about the release and complications surrounding 3.18. It's kind of the big topic right now. And I personally think that the overall health of the project is more of kind of a trend rather than a moment in time. So absolutely right now, I would say the game is in the worst state it's been in since the 3.0 to 3.3 period. And even then, you could log in. Like, it was terrible to play, but you could log into the game. Right now, a lot of people can't even log in or get into the game, which is a huge problem. And we're going on about 2 weeks now, I think, with this. So overall, I think the health of the game and the way it's been developing over the year or two has been pretty good, and it's in a good direction. But also, obviously, 3.18 is a problem. So I would like to hear with my own, now skewing the conversation with my own monologue. What do you guys think of the lead up to 3.18, the way it was delayed, announced, and now having been released, the post-release support? 10 Pound, how about you start us off this one?
Oof, throwing me to the wolves.
Yeah.
It's obviously hugely disappointing. I think that for so many people, they can't play the game right now. I was saying before, I can't believe there's so many people who actually play this as a main game, but there are people who genuinely come home from work and they want to just play Star Citizen, and the fact that it's been so long since launch and it doesn't look like we're getting much progress being made is tough. But I think, like we said before with the alpha state, this is kind of part of it being an alpha or pre-alpha, whatever you want to call it. This sort of should be expected, and we've obviously had rough releases in the last few years where there's been logging queues for different things as well for certain events and things like that. But
yeah, that's true.
If you look at any big game that's released over the last, I don't know, 5 years, there's typically massive issues in terms of login, isn't there? So what was it Amazon MMO built on the same engine called
New World?
New World,
yeah.
That had massive issues, didn't it, in terms of getting into the game at the start. And lots of games do have initial starting issues when people are just trying to get in the game. So it's not shocking, and it shouldn't be shocking because Star Citizen they've changed so much in this patch. So it sounds like I'm just going much on the defend start CIG thing, but I think it is understandable. I think it's such a big patch. It really is. The backend stuff the PES stuff is massive. That I think we just have to let them work through it. But I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if 4.0 was the same.
You think so?
I think there'll be a load of different issues that happen there. So what I don't think will be is that, in theory, this happens now and it means it doesn't happen in the future. But I think with something like 4.0, there'll just be a load of different issues and it might be similar. So I think until the core tech of the game is really in, I think this is probably to be expected, which I know sounds quite disappointing, but it is an alpha. Technically.
Yeah. And we'll get to the way it's marketed and talked about and how that reflects on this, because I think that's where that conversation leads. Is really like, yeah, set your expectations for it being an alpha, but like you said, this is some people's only game. Like, this is what they go home from work and dedicate their evening to, if that's what they want to do as a hobby. And to get home from work, not even know that there's like some big update coming out, and then just suddenly you can't log into the game is kind of wild. And again, just like all about the expectations they're setting. Erad, Jack, either of you have feelings about the 318 launch from announcement to now?
Well, go ahead, Jack.
No, you started first. I interrupted you. We both got feelings.
Let them out.
Just said that 2.42 really said well, it's an alpha, so problems like that are to be expected. And it's true that's also a problem that I mean, if it was just the game servers, for example, you go to an American or Australian servers for the PU, I think it would still be okay. But the problem is that you cannot even get to the menu. If you want, for example, to play Arena Commander or Star Marine, you cannot even do that. And it's hard to understand, because how are those two modules related to persistent entity streaming? So people can there's absolutely nothing that people can do when they're stuck in the 19K game loop, and that is the most frustrating part, and that they still haven't managed to fix. We're still in partial outage status 2 weeks after release. And of course, you know, we feel bad for Jared or Xylo who come on Spectrum and apologize on the behalf of the team. But in the meantime, I also would like to have a more detailed analysis on the situation, what's going on, what's their plan, and they need to communicate. In my opinion, I think that they need to communicate a little bit more on what they are planning to do, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to have a hot fix that the QA is working on, or we're going to have 3.18.1. I would like them to be a little bit more transparent as of what causes those issues, what they are going to plan, what are the possible fixes, just as a heads up, you know. That's what where I think they could improve a little bit.
Yeah. Jack, how about yourself?
Yeah, like I mean, Erad's right. Like, okay, so I'm gonna go kind of both here. Like, they had to push it out. They had to push it out. Like, I know it was in PTU for so long, but the thing that needed to be tested most with 318 was server load. And PTU, even when it's open for all backers, historically has so many less people playing than live because one, you don't want to download a whole other copy of PTU to your computer. Sometimes you don't even have the disk space for that. And I know you can just have one or the other, but it's nice to go back and forth. And then there's some people that, as you said, 10 pound actually come home and play it as a main game. So they go, oh well, I'll just wait till it goes to live and play that. So they pulled out a lot of the old guts, put a bunch in. I mean, 318 had a lot of gameplay features, but under the hood, they just had a whole bunch of stuff that was untested. And the best way to test it was to set it on fire, throw it to the wolves. And I'm sure they're getting some great data on how to fix it, but at the same time, when they communicated that, hey guys, 318 launch is going to be a little bit rough, I feel like when you say something like a little bit rough or something like that, you go, oh yeah, lag, yeah, sure, I can deal with that, or oh, 30Ks or whatever. Not, my God, I can't get in, or oh, everything that I put on my ship is gone. Like I feel like they should have been a bit more descriptive with a little rough. Like, when you go to the doctor and you have an ailment, you want them to go through all the possible scenarios instead of being like, oh yeah, you might,
This is going to feel a little rough.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
screaming in
exactly.
pain.
Like, tell us what's going on. Give us the communication and keep communicating. Because, like, okay, I know it's probably popped up in the chat a lot, but there are so many people that I know that can't even log in. Like,
Yeah.
with the 3019 errors and whatnot. And this is going to kind of dip into the marketing bit, but when you've got a product that, yeah, it's an alpha product, but you have people paying money, like real dollars, to get in, and they cannot play the product, you need to communicate, one, why that is, what's being done to fix it, and at least an estimated timeline, at least to get the pitchforks put away. And like, yeah, they had to shove it out, but keep soothing us, keep making those calming, affirming noises to the populace, so we know, hey, what's going on. Because, like, listen, I grew up in a neglected household. Lack of communication breeds a lot of resentment. And if CIG wants to earn that good faith, just tell us, man. Just tell us.
It's always been their
Like,
sore spot.
yeah, like at this point, like, we're in a relationship with CIG, and I would like to take them to couples therapy. They need to learn to communicate. I feel like they've been distant,
You need a
but
lot of sessions.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, that's
This
my feelings.
It feels
It-
like a little rough is the new soon TM.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
like,
So let's say that they were pretty good about the warnings. Like, I mean, obviously, like they said in the letter from the chairman, things were going to be rough when it came to testing. Testing ended up being much longer than they did think it was going to be. And I think I might not be remembering this correctly, but as we got closer to the live release, it became pretty clear they were having problems with it. But like you said, they didn't really get into particulars. Would you have preferred a launch like this, but with proper warning beforehand, so we all knew that it was going to be terrible, or a delay until, say, Invictus Week again, without the guarantee that it would be better?
I don't think they had any idea it was going to be this bad, so I don't know if they could have given us that option, if that makes sense.
That's fair, yeah, with the warning.
I think there's no way. I mean, I just don't believe that CIG were expecting it to go like this. I don't think they would have put it out the door if they thought it was going to be this bad. I think they were just hoping. Basically, they were just hoping. They didn't have enough data. Obviously, what we're talking about, they didn't have enough people on the PTU, so it's like, well, let's just try, and that's what we've ended up with. But
yeah, that's a fair cop too. Like you said, they didn't know what they were gonna get into.
Which
they could have at least waited for them next Monday.
I guess I'm wondering if they're stuck in something, if in a situation they can't get out of, because the main what is the word? The main criticisms they get are the time and money they've spent, right? So at this point, if something like this happens, generally the first criticism is going to be, well, it's been 10 years and they're still dropping updates that work like this. Or it's, well, it's been 8 months since they announced 3.18 was coming. Why do we now have to wait 2 more months? And I'm wondering, like, what's worse? What should they do? What would a normal game company do in this situation? Because I don't have a good, like I asked you guys if you played alpha games in the beginning, I don't have a good example of how this could go.
Well, for BeamNG Drive, for example, it's very easy. They don't even give a roadmap. We don't even know what's going on until the new patch drops. And hey guys, there's a new patch. Just try it. So at least with Star Citizen, we know what's going on and what's going to be happening eventually. When the next patch is dropping, we have a rough idea of when it's dropping. So at least they are giving us information about what they are working on, even though it's not always clear, even though the roadmap, for example, only tells us what they are working on, but no dates as of that what's going to be released. But still, at least we know that these are features that are being worked on and that eventually we'll get. So there's at least that compared to the only alpha that I know. So they're much more transparent. So we can give them that credit for sure. Again, if we talk about again the release of 3.18, I think that what was said is pretty accurate. There's no way that they could have figured out that it would have been this route. They just had no idea. So at some point they just have to release and, well, hope or pray for the best. But they also have to move on, because then you got all the other features that are also that are waiting and that need to be pushed as well. They've also said that that's also what happened for the 3.18 that we have right now. Actually includes a lot of features that were supposed to be for 3.19 and end up in 3.18. So there's only so long that they can go in the PTU until the next patch is also going to push.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys have? Sorry.
You just wouldn't know with another game. You just have no idea, and suddenly it would be announced that an update is coming, and it would work. And I think part of the success of Star Citizen is the open development. That's probably why the funding has been so successful. And so, yeah, we can't have it both ways. You could in theory say, oh, just close everything off at this point and just release things when they're ready. But people would be more unhappy at that state with that at this stage. So, yeah, they are. You're right in terms of what you originally said. They're stuck between two bad options: either delay it until it's definitely ready, or get it out in a broken state. Neither option is great. So,
people keep saying, like, this isn't good, they shouldn't do this, but I don't know what the alternative is. Just keep delaying 3.18 until it like, for, I don't know how long. How long do they keep delaying it until they're absolutely certain it's going to work on live versus just releasing it and trying to fix it on live is I don't know, something I've been juggling around for the last week.
Well, I think it's like Jack said, they didn't have the numbers on the PTU to know any of this stuff. So they could have been developing 3.18 for another 2 months and they still might not have picked up any of this stuff. It still might have been as bad. So in some ways, the argument is just get it out and let's see. But yeah, if you're wanting to play the game, then you're stuffed.
So there was sorry, go ahead.
That's a very good point. The fact that there were not enough people playing the PTU. Maybe CIG should start to think of maybe giving incentives to play the PTU, especially if it lasts for such a long time.
Yeah.
One of the big problems with the PTU is that almost at every patch there's a full data wipe reset, and so we have to start over again. Grinding the money. I know it's PTU, we shouldn't be doing that, but still, making money, building the reputation, and all of that gets wiped every time. It gets repetitive. People lose their motivation. So why most people, unfortunately, that's what it is. Most backers want to play the game. They don't feel I believe at least that they don't think that they don't want to be beta tester or alpha tester. They just want to play the game. The average player is like that, and so that's why they didn't have enough players playing the PTU, especially for that long period of time over all of the different patches. If they gave an incentive, say, hey, you played for X amount of days or X amount of hours, we're going to give you this amount of money, and with extra each say 100 of hours played, you'll get to an extra threshold, and you'll start with a different with starting money. And
sorry,
then
audio
probably
freeze.
there would have been perhaps more players.
Talking about a PTU battle pass.
Oof.
Only
No.
only $10.99. Only $10.99.
Oh boy.
Well, we already pay for that with the. I have to pay. I'm not in Wave 1. I have to pay for a subscription for a month to get into the PTU. So yeah.
Back in the day, you actually had to buy a pass to get into Arena Commander. Back in the early days.
Did you really?
Yes, it was a $5 pass to access Arena Commander. And they actually refunded it because, like, oh yeah, we're just gonna bake it into the game. But that's actually something I want to hit on right quick. I don't know how many of you guys were around for the old 2.6 days, but this is why I'm for them just go ahead and getting out 3.18. Like, as much as I have grumbled and complained and whined and all the other, thesaurus words, for complaining about 3.18, the content drought between like 2.63 or 4 and 3.0 was over 9 months. And I don't mean like, oh, we had iterative patches where little things were dropped like we got with 3.17. I mean nothing. There was no communication. We had that single 3.0 demo they did forever ago.
You remember the burn down?
And God, yes. Like,
woo!
Oh, yes, Solo, the 2.6 flight. Oh, I missed the Buccaneer and 2.6. Anyway, yeah, just like it was a 9-month content drought and no communication. And that was probably the lowest point of just hoping for something to happen in Star Citizen. And like the only saving grace back then is that we were young and not nearly as jaded about things as we are now. Like if you replicated that 9-month drought of just nothing and no communication now, like the game would be abandoned.
It would die.
It was the golden age of Derek Smart.
Exactly. Like that was like back then we were all young and happy and naive and answer the call 2016, guys. And
yeah, I mean, like we talk about how it's been 10 years and they still make the same mistakes, but clearly they know that if they went back and did some of the things they did in 2016, 2017, trying to charge for access, trying to do the whole pioneer with the land claims, like all of that kind of stuff, I don't think would happen now. I think they still have problems with their ship releases, but like they made some serious blunders back then, and that 9-month period was terrible. I wasn't even playing the game regularly. Yeah, that was... Ooh, that was one of those moments. Yeah, so I think overall we've all kind of settled on the idea that like they're in a tough spot having to run this game live, having to try and test it. And I remember them talking about a new service that they were going to start using to test features. They were going to be able to kind of like dupe clients to test the load on certain features. And I don't know if that was meant for a specific thing or if that was something that might have been useful in this case. Do any of you guys know game development enough to speak towards a feature like that and if it could have helped?
Never trust my opinion. I know nothing.
Just a box.
I am not informed enough here to... I am not informed enough to have an accurate opinion on anything.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I know that, it's on the... Is it still on the roadmap? I don't know. But I'm guessing to know why they were developing that feature. But I imagine if they're thinking about kind of spooling up clients on a single machine, it's never going to be enough compared to the thousands that are logging in for this big release, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's probably the same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking it probably wasn't, but I don't quite remember the particulars about it. All right. Let's move on to the next segment, the next question here. This goes back to what we were talking about. This is obviously a live game in the sense that like they are telling people to come and play it. And there are plenty of people who are jumping in with no interest whatsoever in the testing aspect. They're just here to play the game. So in that sense, it is a live, continuous kind of game experience. Whereas it is also a game building experience. So they are trying to add in these crazy changes like PES and stuff like that, as well as tractor beam stuff, while keeping the game playable. Do you think they should focus more on stability, more on just getting features in? What's the balance in your opinion? Jack, give us the box. Go ahead.
Oh God, why me? Oh, God, I can't believe I'm gonna say this.
Don't do it.
Had two of those moments this show. I'm proud of you, Jack.
Yeah, like
Don't say it.
this feels like that reluctant character growth. Honestly, I feel like features.
No, yeah, say that. That's the right answer.
Yeah, like I mean, because like from a development point, like you wanna put the new things in, and then put out the fires. You wanna get things in, and then go. All right, we've got these things. These are the features that work. Let's make sure they don't crash the game now, and then iterate and make tier 1, 2, and 3. I want stability. I crave stability. Which is weird because I'm playing Star Citizen. But I mean, from a realistic standpoint, features, work on the features, iterate features. Once you have features, make sure they don't crash the game when you utilize those features. But like we just got salvage. Man, that's great. That's a great feature. Is it super stable sometimes? No. I mean, like the worst thing that happens is sometimes you spend 5 minutes hoovering up some scrap, but it doesn't actually go. But it's nice to get those in and then find out where it's not stable and then smooth that over. Like you want to do your broad strokes and then do the refinement. And it seems pointless to work on stability now when introducing new features later on might break that, and then you have to do more work. And yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay.
But
Anybody
I'm
else?
still going to complain about stability.
You never stop the complaining, man. You got to keep it coming.
I think that stability should be a focus after server meshing is online, because that's also going to be probably be quite unstable at the beginning, and maybe some of the changes and fixes that they're going to be making right now will be completely cancelled by the new paradigm, the new reality that Star Citizen will be in once 4.0 drops. So sure that they have to make sure that we don't have too many crash to desktops or memory leaks, which is what that hotfix just did recently. But at the same time, they shouldn't be spending too much time to make a completely smooth experience like a properly released AAA game, because we still have so many things that are going to come in the future that are going to break all these efforts and progress that they are making. So right now I'll go with Jack's same functionalities, new gameplay features, and then once we got the core of the game itself done, once server meshing is in, then they can start to slowly but surely rolling out to then transition from alpha to beta. But it's right now, stability should not be a priority. Players should still have a good enough experience so that they're not disgusted and disgruntled and they just want to uninstall the game. That's obviously something that we don't want, but it also should not be the focus until all the core elements of Star Citizen are in with 4.0.
Okay.
Yeah, completely agree with both of those. I think the phrase maybe is it's just got to be stable enough. It can't be a complete mess like it is now, where you can't play it. That doesn't help anybody. But yeah, it's almost the minimum viable stableness per patch is kind of what they need to do, because it's just a waste of time to optimize and to fix bugs that are going to just break the next patch. So yeah, completely agree with the other two.
That minimum stable performance for a patch, do you think that's a moving target, or is that something that you set the bar at and say, okay, as long as you're here, it's good for the foreseeable future?
Hard to know. They do track it, don't they? I can't remember exactly what it is, but they do have some way of checking how stable a patch is. Maybe it's even on the telemetry. But they do have a way, and if it passes a certain threshold, I think, then they'll say that's stable enough. But there's no way. The game's so big and so complex that certain people's gameplay loops might be completely broken for months, and it's stable enough for CRG to release the game, to release a patch. So
I know that feel.
Well, yeah, loads of people will, because there's certain parts, like, even the funny thing is with all this talk of 318, salvage. I've done a little bit in game. It's the major feature of this patch, and it's not in a very good state. Like it's not. You'd think at the amount of time they would have really got it in, but they're prepared to release a patch where reclaimer elevators don't work, and like you say, the boxes sometimes just stop filling. There's quite a lot still broken, and they're still happy to release it. So yeah, a good one, that one.
So is that the kind of stuff then they could have gotten fixed before pushing 318? Like we talk about, how do they know when 318 would be ready? Is that the kind of stuff that you would have liked to see them fix before they pushed it live? Just the particulars like that?
I think if they're releasing a big feature and they want people to test it and give feedback, it should work. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think yeah.
You crazy man.
Well, yeah. I'm asking the world. But yeah, I think that for me, if they're going to push out big features and they want us to tell them they want us to tell them, oh, change this, this works, this doesn't work. You have to be able to do the loop. And so I was surprised that, having been in PTU for so long, that there's still some pretty fundamental bugs with the major feature of the patch.
It's fair take.
I feel like, can I deviate right quick and jump on what TenPound said there too? Like with the reclaimer elevator, I feel like a lot of that also shows that maybe they don't communicate. Did we just lose Erad?
Well,
No.
it's all right, because I'm here. It's me, Dedleader. I was here all along.
Did you just take out Erad?
I did. I went over to where he lives and I knocked him out, because we thought we were in the same time zone, and obviously we weren't. I was being told by Discord that this was going to be like completely different time than it was. I'm so sorry, Space.
It's all right. So our final guest is here for the end of the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Woo woo.
Have you been able to follow the conversation?
I have here, and
Cool.
All the talk of the reclaimer elevator has been what's been killing me, because that's my one big thing that's broken my heart with the launch of this. I mean, they say on the issue council that it's actually been fixed as of like a week ago, but that must mean what they were talking about with the 3.18.1. I'm just to assume that they mean in that they've fixed the reclaimer elevator. But still, launching with that was ridiculous.
Erad, did you have something that you were gonna say on this before you dropped out?
Sorry.
No, it's no problem.
Yeah, I was a bit lost with the topic.
Oh, well, we were just Jack was talking about like the particular bugs that came out with the patch. So obviously some stuff came with live, some stuff was existing in PTU, and some of it continued on into live. And just the idea of the stability might be bad, but should those have been fixed before going live?
Yeah, so it's really not easy for CIG, because sometimes those bugs are happening, sometimes they're not happening. For example, recently I've been doing a little bit of mining, right? And sometimes I'm having sessions where everything is working perfectly, and then I'm having another session where I can only scan 20% of the rocks, and then the others are non-scannable, so cannot use them. It's a waste of time. doing delivery missions. Sometimes it's working very well. Sometimes the boxes fall through the planet and you're screwed. So it feels also very random. Sometimes you can get stuck. I mean, they fixed it apparently, but before, we could get stuck in the pilot seat, and sometimes not. And players were sometimes, or even today. I was playing a little bit today this morning. Doors were not opening, and then all of a sudden, for some people they're opening, but for other people they're not opening. It's a bit weird.
Selective.
A lot of that seems to be also server related. But maybe maybe it's one of the reasons why these bugs still happen is because of the state of the servers right now, and sometimes they have less of a stress and it works better, but then it doesn't work anymore. So that could also, maybe we have to wait a little bit until they fix their backend so that we can have a better experience.
I will say, on the delivery box missions, like those need to get fixed. I'm sure it's some underlying issue that's making those wonky, but like those are the easiest thing to suggest to somebody new to the game, and I feel like that really basic form of gameplay, they need to make sure that that's kind of a smooth experience. But, who am I? What am I asking for?
Well, there's that, and especially, so we were talking about the earlier, I think it was in private, we were talking about the drug dealing in Star Citizen. Those delivery missions are very important if you play around Hurston for Red Wind deliveries, because then you are going to the illegal missions, which take you to the drug labs. And if you want to go to some of those drug labs with a marker that tells you where it is, and you don't have the trash missions, then you're very happy to take those. But if you can't have access to those because you don't have the reputation, because you lost all your reputation because the boxes fall through the ground, then that's also an issue, right? So it's whole access to mid-tier or late game experience that you don't have because the entry level is not working.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that is going to be interesting is that because 3.19 is based on 3.18 and they're not ripping it all up and doing another patch, it will likely be more stable. Well, like we had, which one was it? 3.16 and 7?
Yeah, 3.16.
No, 15 and 16?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were the same basically behind the scenes. They just added some features. So that's actually probably it's a bit misleading because it makes people think, if you join the game when it works, like it will probably in 3.19, they'll fix a lot of the bugs and it will feel like a game. But then that isn't normal. It's not normal to have two patches back to back that are on the same kind of build. So I don't know.
It seems it's something that they do after a major change, because like that was right after the inventory changes, which was like a big change. So maybe we won't need another one on the code base this year to keep stability going, but I bet after server meshing we'll want one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's tackle, I think, probably the biggest topic we're going to hit today. Do you think they should be marketing this game in the way that they do, considering its state and the alpha? Who's going to jump into that one first?
I can jump into that.
Yeah.
I've got feelings about this in particular because when they launched this on the Kickstarter initially, and it's like, all right, this is how we're going to fund this game. We're going to work by this model to get enough money to do everything. That's how you kickstart something, right? But then obviously the game has progressed into a funding model of pledging to kind of let it keep going, to not have a real due date and let them develop it how they want to. And I believe it's become its own real kind of beast. I actually work in game development and marketing, and not currently, but in the past. And this funding model they have now is no longer about kickstarting something. You can't be going for 10 years and still be having money being funded to it like that. It's not quite a live service. It's not quite like buy the game off the shelf. It really is its own beast in altogether. And I believe that using a lot of the terms that they do currently do it detriment more than anything. I think that their marketing and the finance team would do really, really well to go back to how they describe absolutely everything about this being an alpha and when people should be expecting things and how, like, what they call things when they're kind of being funded and, everything, like even the way that they CCU things that you don't really like, you buy something and then you melt it for store credit and all that, like that whole way of like essentially like being able to like spend money on DLC but then convert it back to store credits and then use it again, that's its own new thing altogether. And I think it's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing. I think it's a whole new beast, but so many people are going off like previous ways of describing things and calling things that when they try and measure it up against all those things that they do know what they're like, it doesn't match up. And that's where you get people so conflicted about things or thinking that it's a scam or that, being negative about it in general, because their expectations, no matter what, can line up with what they're kind of currently doing or what they, want it to be.
Yeah, I described the CCU system to a friend of mine the other day, and the look of constantly folding eyebrows of monetarily disgust was it's like you see the face, you go, am I in a cult? But yeah, no, I agree with you there, Dad.
Yeah, it's not like the way that they, and I think it's one of their biggest, like it's a negative not just for other people like looking into the whole system, it's a negative on internally as well, because I believe that CIG are terrified to move away from some of the previous sort of crowdfunding models of like, selling concepts, selling a ship that isn't ready on any degree. Like my whole point with why I don't like people buying new concept ships and then putting new ones out is because I like everyone say, oh, but they need it for the funding and to keep it going. It's like, okay, yeah, they need money, but we've come so far along now that you don't need to keep doing it in the format of when you're first trying to pitch the game to people. You don't need to do it that way and keep adding things onto this menu. Like if they went back, there's so many new people playing the game right now who have no idea of the previous concept ships that they've already sold and like have nothing to like. I remember when IAE like happened the last time, I didn't know about any of like these ships that were for being sold that were concept ships. And so I'm like, well, I don't know when that's going to come. All I know about this ship is they promised that many years ago. So well, I'm not going to buy that concept. But the Corsair, they announced that the Corsair was happening, and like they were leaking things here and there, and they were also like dropping other ships.
They will be selling HABs. They will be selling more land claims in the future.
They have time now to just like, if they were trying, okay, stop selling new concept ships, sell your older concept ships. People will still buy, new people will buy those ones if you just put focus in it and say like, all right, instead of like, we're going to launch this new concept ship at, IAE or Invictus or whatever, say, all right, we're going back into like the ones we need to fix up. Which one are we going to start the marketing drive for? All right, it's going to be the, like the turret, not the turret, let's say not the mine layer. What's the mine layer ship?
Nautilus.
Nautilus.
Yeah, Nautilus.
Nautilus. It's all going to be about the Nautilus. Like, all right, we're going to ramp up, like talking about the Nautilus again, and yeah, we're going to have all this leading up to. Then we're going to announce it's actually coming out at this time. I was so hype about the Corsair. I didn't know anything about it when it first initially like launched. I'm relatively new to the game, but them like just like seeing it finally like come, like there was a real honest to goodness air of excitement around the whole community. Like all the videos coming out about the Corsair happening and like all the leaks that were happening, like I was chewing that content up. I couldn't get enough of it. Like, and that being able to rile that up in your fan base, especially with one that has such a connection to people through content creation and stuff, is like you could see every content creator like jumped on that beat of like, oh, leaks, oh, there's a new leak of this, and oh, I can do what? Then like people would look up the old information about them. I was a sucker for it, and I think that is their most powerful weapon that they can have. But when they just release a new ship out, all that people talk about is, well, fuck these guys, man. Like, this is just another, I don't know when I'm going to get this. Like, I feel gross, Like, you know, the idea of that. And I hadn't even experienced that for all those years. But knowing that, like, oh, you're going to add this just to the list, and them making it so nebulous about what's actually going to happen and when it's going to happen made me not interested in all the previous concept ships. But if they flipped that on its head and they started just treating old concept ships as if they were new ones, like marketing now, it would be so ripe for money making right now. They wouldn't need to rely on new concepts.
I agree with you to an extent, but I do think that they probably will make more money from old backers that are more used to the idea of buying these concepts than the new people jumping in. That not obviously or not, like, that's not 100% either way, but I do think they're probably leaning more on that.
I agree, but if they were to be serious about finding a marketing plan that leads them out of all this negative talk and negative, like, non-belief and bad blood that they have over so many years, because it's bad, dude. It's bad and it's gross, right? And that's probably the biggest thing. Like, okay, any streamer, any major Star Citizen streamer, what happens when a new person comes in and says, wow, this game looks fun. What's this called? Should I get it? What does that streamer tell that person? What's the rant that comes out there?
Let's have a conversation.
It's a warning. It's a warning about all the things of why they shouldn't get into it, right? That's so bad. That's so bad.
But I mean,
if they were serious about changing that, they have to have a plan to turn it around, and it's not by doing the same thing the same way.
But I don't. Go on.
Go ahead. No, £10.
Well, they will. I'm sure they have the metrics for new player acquisitions and for sales and all that sort of stuff. And I just assume that as scummy as it can feel, they're just happy with what they're doing. I don't think they care about what a certain select people think. I think they're just happy. I personally think the marketing team is the best team in the whole of CIG. They're incredible.
God, they're going to cancel you, £10. They're going to come for you.
I don't like it. I don't like
get some giveaways.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. I don't like the tactics, and I would agree with what you're saying. But they have a business model where they plow in 100 million a year, and there's just no way that they're going to U-turn at this stage.
I agree, but I think it's out of fear that they don't, because they know, hey, when we do this one thing, this happens. But when you tell them, okay, stop doing that one thing that's guaranteed like millions of dollars, that's an awful thing to say to someone in a company, especially when they've been growing and expanding and expanding. But it's, if they ever actually want to get out of the hold of bad reputation, it needs to take some real balls in a board meeting to say, okay, look, we need to change some things. And it's going to put a lot of people that look at the funds very, very terrified. And I 100% agree that that's what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, we can either sit here and they're not going to do anything about it, or someone's going to have to risk that biscuit. But honestly, it's, as from a marketing standpoint, like, I mean, that's why they sit there and they just kind of take the hits all the time. You know, when how like they take the hit, and people saying, oh, when's this going to come out? Oh, screw you guys. They never reply. They never acknowledge all the stuff coming back, because they know they have to take the hit. And that's where they're kind of they're leaving it, really.
Well, going to what £10 said, I mean, they keep chugging because people will keep buying. I mean, this is kind of a take, I guess. I'm not sure if it's the take I want to go with, but the feature development is super important because, like you said, Dedleader, as soon as they get an old ship that's been in concept for 5 years or something, and it's coming out reintroduced with the features actually working, people go nuts for it. The Argo SRV is going to sell like hotcakes because it's got a giant tractor beam on the back that actually works compared to before when it was just a picture. And like,
yeah.
I feel like they have a bunch of ships that are in the backlog specifically because they're waiting on feature development.
Yeah.
And if they get those features done, those ships start selling, they make a lot more money. And that really makes me feel like at the end of the day, ships might sell as concept art, but the lasting money is coming from their feature development. Like, this game got so much more money after it got persistence and it got more stable around that 3.10, 3.9 time. The funding took off. And if you look at the concept ship sales, I'm pretty sure they had slowed down year over year at that time. We weren't getting concept ship sales in the first half of that year, but the money was coming in like crazy because the game was getting better.
3.82 was the carrot. That would be your monumental funding. People getting back to that thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed we're getting more and more are older ships that are getting new variants as well. And that seems to be a direction that they're taking. We've seen that with the Cyclone MT and the Cutlass Steel, and recently as well the Scorpius and Taurus. Now the problem, and it's something that Morphologist did mention in the video, they all ended up in his list. But it's also something quite interesting that they're not, for these particular sales, they're not making new concepts. They're using ships that are already existing and trying to offer new solutions. And because these are ships that have never been sold before, at least in those variants, they're also coming with the LTI that's very sought after. And I think that the LTI is also...
For why? Why
Sorry?
is it sought after? It's so artificial.
Well, it is, right? But I guess that people are interested or excited about the idea that they're always going to have their ship, and that if one day they don't have enough money to pay for the insurance, well, it's still going to be there anyway. So perhaps that's that. Even though they can still buy the ship with a 10-year insurance, but maybe they plan to play the game for longer than that.
And like, okay, I actually will say some unkind things now, if I can.
What?
About marketing versus alpha. I feel like CIG has assembled an amazing marketing team that has become a beast that they cannot put back. I feel like they started out as this really cute indie developer that had a dream, assembled the world's best marketing team for a game, and have essentially let it get out of control. Because it brings in amazing funding. But at the same time, it dictates a lot of the stuff for development too. Like I don't know if you guys ever go to like Glassdoor and read the reviews, like exit reviews of people that work at CIG, but you see a lot of things of like marketing controls everything, or that's why you have ships that are made before their gameplay is designed. Like you look at the Reclaimer. That ship was obviously built long before salvage was actually ever concepted. I mean, just from the horrendous elevator design alone.
I think it was there in 2.6, right?
No,
that was later.
Was like a 3.4,
3.4, 3.6, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, like with salvage,
3.3 maybe. I think it came up around the same time as the Cyclone.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it brings in so much money for them. And that allows them to, expand the scope massively and, buy Constellation sliding doors and, kegs for their offices and whatnot. And, but at the same time, it forces them to, release these promotions and campaigns. Like, you guys saw the trailers for 318 and the amazing, cinematic work. And it's like, oh boy, golly, that looks amazing. And all them 3019s as you try to load in.
With that though, just to
go ahead.
Just to throw it back, whose fault is it though that that isn't? I mean, I now sound like the marketing team's biggest fan.
I know where you're going.
It's not their fault that the game, as in every patch that CIG released, they do trailers. They do it, and they do it for every ship that releases. The marketing team probably had no idea that the game wasn't going to work. Who decided to actually release those videos? That's the person who's probably at fault there. If that makes any sense.
I will say that
fault is a weird word, because it's like people just doing what they're told. Like, we're going to launch this time. We need a launch video. And marketing's like, hey, we're going to market all this stuff, but here's the limitations of what we need to do. As in, we need to make this much from, we're not changing this model. Like, and so it's all a beast of their own design. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was going to say that I oftentimes it comes up like, hey, why are you guys showing trailers where all this gameplay is like amazing and awesome and fun? And I like that the trailers are in engine. I think they are. So it is an accurate representation of what could happen if the game was running perfectly. But I'm also like, would you really want them to, like, would you expect them to release trailers with all the glitches and stuff going wrong? I don't know. I can't imagine a company doing that just to be like, hey, this is what the game actually looks like. Be careful, because video game trailers would be quite different.
Yeah.
Every game thing.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, go ahead, TenPound.
I was just going to say, every game company releases trailers that don't represent real gameplay.
Sometimes they do it in a different engine too.
That's true. But
yeah, I used to watch like World of Warcraft trailers, and I didn't care about the game because the trailers were sick.
Like, that's the thing. Actually, just got brought up in chat, like FOMO too with marketing. Like, okay, LTI is one of the biggest things that it comes with like all the new concept ships, and the only way to get LTI is to spend real money. But CIG hasn't clarified all the stipulations around insurance in several years.
Why do you think that is?
Because it helps sell things.
Because they don't know how it's going to work yet.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. Like, I mean, they've made plenty of mistakes in the past trying to outline, gameplay mechanics on a napkin before they actually start programming it. Like, Chris Roberts is the worst about that. But, like, I feel like it helps their marketing because, like, okay, let's say I buy a reclaimer, all right? No insurance on, like, I got a non-LTI reclaimer, insurance runs out, and I lose that item. Like, I feel like there are several consumer protection groups across various countries that would be very interested in some of that. And there was a post years ago where someone from CIG was talking about, hey, even if you lose it, you'll still be able to get it back in game. And it was a yellow post, like an actual official staff post. And then it got delisted and then eventually deleted. Maybe because it was just a random developer commenting instead of being like an official post. But the lack of CIG clarifying the exact stipulations of LTI allows them to capitalize on that fear of losing ships. Because like the 890 jump, it's like $950, and you're not going to get that with LTI. But if you buy that $1,300 Origin pack, it's over $1,000, and that comes with LTI. So you just spend a little bit more. Your giant Gatsby, ground, like the USS Grounds for Divorce, is protected for the life of your gameplay. And like it might be like that without LTI. You might just have to wait longer, pay more money in game, but until they confirm that, LTI sure does look like a great way to have that peace of mind. And that's the thing that sticks me the most.
Yeah. I think the worst part of Star Citizen, not the updates, not the time it's taken, not the money they've made, it's the marketing. It's not just the marketing in the sense of these trailers, but like the things that you're saying, Jack. Like the way that things are presented are shared with backers, especially early backers, the way that it kind of, and like you said, Dedleader, it is a different beast. Like, you wouldn't expect an early access game to, when you go in to purchase something, throw in one of those little things at the bottom of your screen that's like, hey, add this onto your purchase. It's like, don't do that. But at the same time, it is a different beast where they're incentivized to do that. And I think it's really, it can be really frustrating.
Yeah, I'm going to be the I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, but without a marketing team, would they have been able to grow the way that they have?
Oh God, no.
Right?
Yeah, no, they'd still be tiny. They'd have $20 million.
And that's, I mean, it's a point, but at the end of the day,
for me, it's a necessary evil.
Right. And I think that's the hard part, is that they blossomed the game in like 2015, 2016, and they blossomed the budget to keep, I guess they kind of blossomed the game to keep up with the budget, but like there are methods, I imagine, to keep the game small so you can operate without having to go through such lengths.
I think the LTI kind of things, to go back a tiny sec for it, it's like the reason people even buy ships with real money in this is because if they've done a really good job at making it feel like when you get a new ship, it feels like when you get a new piece of technology, like you get a new camera and it's got all those nice curves and it feels heavy and it feels weighted and it feels like, finally I have this new piece of whatever. It's, it's a guilty purchase, but it's a proper purchase. And like you have a real kind of collectability. Like, when you get a nice camera like that, you want to get the nice case, you want to get all this. And then like that collector, when you start spending that amount of money, the collector mentality is to like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, I want it to be the best one. You want to min max. You want to make sure you have like it all just right and how it works. So if I'm going to spend this amount of money, I might as well like do this. I have to have it so it's up to this like point. And that's, to me, I've always thought of Star Citizen as more like you don't buy a copy of the game and then you play Star Citizen. It's you buy the ship that you want to tell your story with, that you want to explore this kind of thing with. And then that mentality of like, oh, I own this ship. Oh, this is part of my, like, my part of this dream of what this game could be and should be. It really kind of gets you to commit to that. It's a real like kind of commitment that a lot of people have, and that's why they get so butthurt with things. But it is also ridiculously seductive when it comes to like wanting to make sure you have the top. Like if you love that ship, you want to have the top everything, and LTI is just one of them. And I'm an absolute sucker. I have LTI on all of my ships. Like I went out of my way to do that. I hate that I can't get the pirate caterpillar with LTI, like to the point that I own it multiple times, but I've melted it both of those times because I'm like, it's just look. I put it next to these other beautiful LTI things, and I can't justify it. I go, get rid of it, get it out of here, even though I think it's one of the best ships.
I've got a pirate caterpillar with LTI.
Oh, I hate you.
I hear a trade deal.
Now,
Hanging on to that, Jack?
Talking about... Sorry.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the marketing team and what it does for Star Citizen, but I think that it's also interesting to look at the competition to see what's happening there in other games where they don't have the CIG marketing team. I'm thinking of Elite Dangerous, for example, which they have a different model. They rely mostly on cosmetics, and they're obviously not racking the money that Star Citizen are making, because when you look at the new content that's being added to the game over the past couple of years, it's absolutely it's ridiculous compared to what Star Citizen has brought. There's almost nothing since the release of Elite Dangerous in 2014, if I'm correct, right? Oh, it's only been 2, and the last one was the Odyssey was a complete disaster. How many new ships? We can count the new ships on one hand.
Yeah, I don't even know.
How many new ground vehicles? They only have 2 ground vehicles. The last one was added last year. There's no new content. The only content is the narration. They have a handful of people working on maintaining Elite Dangerous right now and bringing content for players who still play that game. If CIG had not had that marketing team that helped developing the game and had help adding that content, those features, Star Citizen would be at a much smaller scale. It would basically be another game like Elite Dangerous, and that's the reason why we're getting this game that's so developed and that has all these amazing features that no other game has as well, because it's bringing the money to pay all that staff that other studios don't, like Frontier.
It is definitely worth mentioning that, like, obviously a lot of the games that might compete with something like this, not compete, might be in the same genre as these types of games, most notably I think being Starfield coming out this year, have a lot more backing initially based on just the company being there already and being wildly successful, I would say. I think Bethesda's done pretty well for themselves. So CIG does have more of a need to raise money, and that has driven the company. I still definitely think that they're on the right track in terms of the development itself, but like the marketing can be rough. So at the end of all of this, I guess, what I want to ask from you guys is, what would you like to see change when it comes to the marketing, specifically because the game is still considered an alpha, as opposed to, like, I think everybody's idea of how they could do this would change once it reaches like that first release model or whatever.
I would love CIG to maybe take the temperature of the community and see what they would need when new ships and especially new variants are coming. I don't know anyone who's been asking for the Scorpius and Taurus, for example, or the Cutlass Steel, but it could have been other variants made. Maybe they should have polls. In the past, we were asked what we wanted. Hey, what ship do you want to have? And then they were making those ships. Be great if they could bring that again, so that they could. They need to be in touch with the community, and sometimes the decisions that are being made, and the Scorpius and Taurus is one of the embodiment of that. Sometimes they really feel out of touch with their communication as well, and I would like them to be more in touch with us, the backers.
Yeah, I feel that I have somewhat of a controversial opinion, is that they are a lot better now than what they were about 2 years ago, and they're actually doing everything correctly, but I think it's that they're not putting it in the same package. It's not communicating it correctly. I feel like for the past 2 years, the whole angle of where CIG's been going with Star Citizen is way better. It feels like they got a real producer that came in and said, like, all right, we need strict deadlines. We need to, like, all right, what's in the way? All this technology? All right, stop doing all this garbage. Get in here and start working on this. It honestly sounds like that's what's happened. But they need to just change how they treat talking about everything and how they plan what's coming out and what they kind of talk about and all that. Like, I think that the rate that we're getting updates right now, totally fine. I think the like the ship concepts should probably kind of rack off, but I think that like new ships that just drop, like unannounced ships that just drop in events, totally fine. Like, keep making new ships and everything, and just like bringing them out and letting people have them, because that's I don't know. I find that's just far more interesting rather than a vague promise constantly that just gives people PTSD constantly, and then just like bring more to like the Bounty Merchantman stuff. You know how close that was being to, like, it felt like it was really just like they were going to push that out the door and it was going to be a thing. We were all going to get it, like, a hold of it. And like the 600i like rework, when they talk about stuff like that, they need to stick to it. They need to stick with the updates. They need to keep working on it. And if there's something like, all right, well, it's not going to really come out for like another year or whatever, then they're just going to say, all right, well, now we've got all that work done. It's, we just need that server meshing to come online and it can come in. But unfortunately, like, it can't be sustained within the game with the way the servers are handling it at this point. That amount of transparency and like bringing people directly into the fold of it, and so they can see the production of it happening, rather than concept audio for Squadron 42, the game no one asked for. Like, that's the way I think they should do it.
I want Squadron.
Well,
I want it.
Nicely.
I want it too.
I want it. I just didn't ask for it.
I actually passed on the original Kickstarter because I wanted a multiplayer game. And at the time, Star Citizen was supposed to be a limited multiplayer experience. So I feel you there.
I'll say this. We haven't had a sprint report in quite a while. And I think that sprint reports really help ground ISC in the way you're talking about, in that, like, they do subjects for ISC, but we need to keep getting sprint reports, I would say at least one a month, to get regular updates on the things that they introduce. Tell us what's going on with the 600. Tell us what's going on with mid-sized bombs or personnel transport or cargo decks, or that kind of stuff in the sprint reports is really good.
We next should be interested. Like, they've stopped the 600i, they've stopped the Bounty Merchantman stuff, but just say, hey, the next time we're going to jump into that is going to be in 2 months, and then you'll hear more things again. Like, just that bit of extra communication, not just like dropping it on us when they've got like a pretty video to show next.
I think sometimes they do a pretty decent job of that on Spectrum. I appreciate some of the some of the standouts like Sylvan is out there generally answering questions and giving people fairly regular updates. So I do appreciate that they do that, but I see where you're coming from with that.
Also, Yogi. Yogi will answer every single, like, you can ask the most asinine question, like, hey Yogi, are they going to change the color slightly on the fire for the badger? And he will give you an in-depth answer about hue changes and saturation and everything else. Like, it could be the most ridiculous question and he will answer it.
What's your answer to the question, by the way, Jack, in terms of the changes to marketing they could do to better improve the experience and better reflect the idea of it being an alpha?
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like if they scaled back on the hype they put out, it would almost seem like they're in a bad position. Like there's, things going on in the background that are bad. Like, oh no, Star Citizen's in trouble. Like I can see the Kotaku article now.
They didn't release a trailer this time.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, oh, they're being more honest about it. Is there trouble? Let's see. It just writes it like, once you've gotten that far to scale back or to I guess be more realistic with it, almost puts it in a weaker position. I would love for them to be like, hey, this is rough, but come try it out. You like if they could just do like a the Ryan Reynolds version of like a Mint Mobile ad almost. I feel like that would be a more honest thing. But the thing about marketing is you're selling a pitch, and it's very hard to be completely honest in a pitch because you're hyping it, and you're not selling the product, you're selling the idea of a product. And while you can always put that asterisk of alpha or playable alpha state, it's just I feel like marketing isn't exactly compatible with that. So I don't have a good answer. I wish I could give you one, but yeah, no, I don't have a marketing degree.
So it feels kind of like an inevitability to you?
Yeah, like their marketing is excellent, and anything they did to scale it back or make it more realistic, I feel like would just negatively impact things as a whole or put it in a worse position in the public eye than what it already is.
It's tough as well because it is like a fun experience regardless. Like I enjoy being in this midst of the discussion and the community that are around and that care about these certain ships and that to a certain degree, and that they want that they're excited, like new things coming online piece by piece which add more to the gameplay. Like that entertains me as a game concept. Like it would kind of if the game just came out and then it had everything that was ever going to be in it and then that was it, inevitably I'd get sick of it and kind of like move on probably. Like I don't think there is such thing as a perfect game, but I do like new things constantly coming to a game or service, and I like the communications and the love people have for certain things and all the personal organizing and the org stuff that people do with each other and the friends and the mucking about in game. Like for everything that Star Citizen messes up on, everything that is currently there at the moment is worth the price of entry, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I've spent $45 on way more disappointing things. Starforge looking at you, but like you're right there. Like for the price of entry, there's a lot of things to do, and I also feel like sometimes, like for the old veterans, we get jaded too. Like.
I mean, it's been a while.
When you've been around since all you could do is walk around in a hangar, everything just seems old.
Bless you.
I do feel grateful that I didn't pledge back to the old days and that, because I've saved myself a whole lot of, burnt
you
time.
think you think you saved yourself, but you got to prepare for the next 10 years.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah,
it'll catch up.
Yeah.
I think you guys
something to mess around with.
I think you guys have really highlighted the nuance of the conversation surrounding the game. Because like you said, there are clear problems, definitely with the marketing and at times with the stability and the way that the game functions and the time it takes, but at the same time, you can also get a good, worthwhile experience out of it if you come in realistically and stay away from the store. Because there are problems. There are problems, and there are also some pretty solid successes of the game. It does a good job at some things, at a lot of things, and I think it's easy to lose. It's easy to get caught up in conversations surrounding the game about the meta of the game as opposed to like the actual playing of the game, which is because a lot of times you can't play it. But TenPound, what is your take on the marketing with Alpha?
I expect it to ramp up, because the way these things work is that a marketing team, I'm sure, they've explored all they've explored. There'll be people on that team whose job is to think about new ways to market the game and to make more money. And so we've obviously talked a little bit about the fact that these trailers, they've only started in the last 5-6 patches, haven't they? The ads that we've talked about running on YouTube, there's YouTube ads running, and I imagine they'll just, I think, unfortunately, I don't think we have any ability to influence what they're going to do, as scummy as some of the things feel. And I think, if anything, it's just they're going to look at more ways. Like the land claim thing, it felt like we just need to make some more money. Let's come up with this idea and we'll just throw it out there. And even the Antares and this Cutlass Steel as examples, you just think you're just trying to make money out of this. That's purely what you're trying to do. It doesn't seem like it really serves the game very well. Yes. It's just like somebody's come up with an idea and gone, oh, this will make some more money. But
Who has ever seen someone fly a Cutlass Steel in game?
Exactly. Nobody. The price was so outrageous on that ship compared to the other Cutlasses. It was crazy. But I just think there's going to be more of that. And I think you said it before, Erad. I think it's a necessary evil. Think about what they've invested in their infrastructure in terms of the studios that they've moved into. They have to continue making at least as much money as they currently are. Mm-hmm. And again, they'll be looking to make more money. So I would just expect some more questionable marketing choices to come in the next few years as they try and make more money, unfortunately.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Isn't it? That's quite...
wanted to hear how they're going to fix it.
But the Spirit C1 is going to be great. So go and buy one of those.
I mean,
that's happy.
I like.
I'm waiting for the Vulture variant that just carries like 12 people on the side, so they can EVA salvage.
Okay, hear me out. What if they took the Rock DS and instead of a mining laser, gave it a tractor beam, so that both people always had something to do, even if it was moving? I feel like that'd be so much more useful.
You shouldn't say this because they'll definitely make that now.
I mean, just replace it. Forget about the mining part.
It just Why couldn't they just, I don't know, chop the chair off? Like, the chair is not, like, that chair is tacked on. Chop the chair off, resell it, it's fine. It's good. It's good to go. That chair is useless.
Wouldn't that be the Rock?
Just make sure it's just more storage, can be a little bit more powerful, just make it a 2-seater with its own atmosphere, and, I don't know. Just even a bed. You know what? Put a bed in there. Why not?
Also,
oh gosh.
Tractor beam. How dare you encroach on the mule's territory with moving boxes?
The mule doesn't even have a tractor beam, though. It's going to get outclassed by something.
No, it's useless. Like, I don't. Okay, yeah, all right. As much as I love the mule, that is one of those other marketing things as well. For moving boxes, that is the most useless thing because it carries one box, maybe two. And then you have to drop it off at the ship and then use a tractor beam to load it from the mule to the ship. Why not just use the tractor beam in the first place and save yourself time?
But the mule is practical when there's a storm.
Or when you have to go far.
Yeah, but if you have to go far, just bring the ship there. Like it's Star Citizen. Like, if there's something in the area that's preventing the ship from getting in there, you blow it up.
Well, with that, finishing up that segment of the pod, I think we will let's end on a happy note. What are y'all excited for in the next year of Star Citizen? Not all at once, please.
Is that happy?
I'm overwhelmed.
Are there exciting things coming in the next year? That's the question.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna go ambitious
come on.
here.
They just
It is
showed us
for
tractor
coming
beams
in
yesterday.
1 year.
Yeah, that's fair.
All
yeah,
right.
do you mean like what they've told us that we're gonna get in the next year, or what we would like?
We
to
can
kind
never
come
go
out
off
in the
of what
next year,
they've told us we're gonna get,
Do we
right?
go off
Like,
script? Because then all they've told us then is salvage beams, hull C, and well, I mean, technically they've said server meshing, but they've kind of seemingly wound that back a little bit.
well, yeah. So, I mean, going off of what we've been seeing in developments, what they've been talking about, obviously the cargo refactor, hull munching is definitely a focus. There are certainly some things that they've got planned. I mean, if nobody's got anything, I'll go.
I'll go. I think they're desperate to get 4.0, and I'm not saying this year, but I think they're desperate to get Pyro and 4.0 out. And so with the last video all about server meshing, that was clear that they're basically they just want to get it out as fast as they can, and that is now their aim, is to get Pyro and 4.0 out. So I don't think that will happen this year, but I'm interested to see if we do even get a 320. I wonder if we'll have another break. We'll get 319, and then they'll have a long period like we had with 318, where they're developing 4.0. And to be honest, for me, if they just were like, well, we're just 4.0 is coming, it's the next thing that's coming, I think that would be a win.
I have very, very simple needs and wants as a star citizen myself. It's three things: reclaim elevator working, hull munching, and then thirdly, I want lockers to work. I want lockers to work so badly. And that's it. I'll be a happy boy. Give me those.
Lockers would be great. The locker functionality of being able to store all of your kit in there and then just press a single button and get everything equipped is going to be really nice.
Yeah, I want to be able to role play just a little bit more. I want to be able to wear casual clothes on the ship and then like go into that, the armory and be able to, like, all right, time to suit up. And then like have like my gear set up, like the Carrack like armory with all those nice little spots for gear sets around there. I'd be spending all this time setting up exact gear sets I want, putting them in all the lockers, making them all exactly how I like them. Like I love doing that stuff. It's so silly, but it's like I'm a real nester, in games. I want to make a base. I want to make it all comfortable. I want to put, in Rust. I'm the guy that's putting up, fairy lights everywhere and pretty rug designs and stuff. And
oh, Rust.
Yeah.
Jack, how about you?
I'm gonna make some hopeful, starry-eyed, naive predictions.
Do it. I love it.
Fixed trade. I feel like sometime this year, it's not going to be actually fixed itself, but the announcement that things are coming. That we're actually getting the timers, which means increased variation, increased profits, reasons to do it again, and not look over at someone rock mining and watching them make more money than you in a golf cart. The Spirit series, the A1 steak sauce, and the E1, actual passenger transport. I know we were supposed to get that for what patch was that? And then it just disappeared.
317.
Well, yeah. Wow, that was first 317. Wow, yeah. Wow, it feels like it was so long ago. But yeah, passenger transport, improvements to salvage, and more being able to actually hit the play button and log in. And for everyone to not have a 3019 error, and when you do have that issue, being able to go to character reset and or repair. Those are my predictions, that when I lose my Among Us suit, that I could get it back without having to wait for a patch update.
It should be so easy. It should just be you go into the clothing store and then there's a special machine, or go to the admin office and there's a special machine for buying items, and the only items on there are stuff that you have in your hangar, and you got to pay in-game money to claim them. But just like it was stocked in there like it was any other shop. Just do that. Just do that. And it'll be fine.
That is my dream. That is what I that is what I dream of.
Doesn't sound
Better
too
trade.
hard.
Yeah, I mean they can do it. They can do it. You know.
Yeah, I
Also,
think
if
the
you know,
personnel transport
CIG
would be great.
yeah, and if CIG could recognize that I exist, but that's not a gameplay feature. That's just a vanity project.
Same.
See him, CIG. Erad, how about you?
Witness us.
And I will throw a little bit of a variation on that. We can say things that you hope they'll do in the next year. Obviously, nobody can possibly predict what actually they'll do.
I don't have any. They say will be coming eventually goes away, so we don't have any visibility. The only thing that's concrete eventually is what gets on the roadmap for the next quarterly release, and that's it. So just like what TenPoundFortyTwo said, if one day they tell us, okay, the next patch is 4.0, and they give us some stability, we got 6 months, 9 months of smooth experience with 3.19 or 3.20 if we get there. We will, just like with 3.17.5, we knew that we know that there's going to be a wipe coming up, right? But we still have some dynamic events, and we can still have some good times together, celebrating the last moments of the old Star Citizen while we're waiting for the new one. I think that I'll be in for that.
Okay. I am really excited for a new star map. I don't know if that's coming in the next year. I think it might be a 4.0 type of thing, but they're getting pretty on top of the UI stuff and getting that developed in line with each other. So I'm really hoping we see one in the next year. Also, personnel transport, Jack, was a good call out. I would love to see that. And then finally, I think engineering gameplay and oh man, I just lost my last one. Engineering
Any reason
gameplay.
to multi-crew?
Yeah. I mean, the engineering gameplay is crazy. You mentioned Among Us. Like, I can't wait to actually stage an Among Us sort of style game on like the Carrick or something with a bunch of people and see if you could get it working.
That's fun.
What was the last thing that I was thinking? Go ahead.
I have a different opinion regarding engineering gameplay personally, and I know that that's not a popular opinion, but that's. I mean, I'm glad that it's coming, but it's not something that I am personally excited about, because very often I don't have a lot of time to play. I don't have a lot of time to organize events with people. So very often I play solo because that's the only solution that I have. And if I need to have other people to organize, or wait for other people to come when they just have an hour and a half to fix the ship or maintain the ship, sure, I could do that myself, but that's another gameplay loop that I would have to learn, and I again don't have all that time to learn all the gameplay loops. So what I hope that they are doing is with the whole maintenance gameplay loop that's coming up, that there's like an option when you go to a landing zone or a pad, just like you have the option to refuel your ship or repair, also pay for maintenance so that it's done automatically if you don't have the time or the will to do it yourself. I hope that they're also going to give that option.
Yeah, I think it should be balanced to make sure to take care of all players. But I personally don't want to fly ships, and I think it blows my mind how many people don't seem to understand that people who don't want to fly ships play Star Citizen, and like we will want to be crew on ships. I'm either going to be crew on ships or I'm going to be playing on a planet. So,
and like with engineering too, like it can always straddle that line of baseline performance versus extreme optimization. Like being able to utilize a ship solo, but being able to squeeze that much more out of it if you do have engineering at the time.
Yeah, hitting that balance would be important. The last thing that I remembered, the last thing I was looking forward to this year was increases in missions. I think that's something that they're clearly focusing on, and seeing the possibility of mining, cargo, salvage, bounty hunting, and courier missions all at the same time, plus mercenary missions that'll probably utilize the new underground facilities. It sounds like missions could be more enjoyable by this time next year, so I'm hoping for that as well.
Yeah, that the IRC on the missions and linking them all together. That's good. The game should be more playable in a year, as in it should be more fun. That's
It's 2
That's not bad,
years,
is it?
10 pound. It's 2 years. Come on. It's always
10
2.
years. It's 10 years.
2 years from now. Don't worry about it. Anyways, thank you all for joining me today. Dedleader, sorry you only got a half a podcast, but this is a good one. Longest one to date. Had a lot of fun with it. So before we sign off, please let everybody know where they can find your own content if they want to continue these conversations with you guys. Jack, go ahead and start us off.
Of course. I'm Jack Axton. I am the yellow box in front of you. And you can find me under the same name on YouTube and literally just about nowhere else.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, you're on Twitter, right? Yellow box on Twitter.
Yeah, but it's just like it's like dumb puns and stuff. Like you're not gonna find anything useful there.
All right, 10 pound.
Yeah, same, just YouTube, TenPoundFortyTwo, but yeah, performance, PC parts. But yeah, if you want to talk or get any help, Discord is very helpful, so you can join the Discord. But yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Dedleader, go ahead.
Just here on YouTube or on my with my org, the Skull Scrapers. Shout out to Skull Scrapers. You guys are all legends. I'm a big solo player as well, and I think most people in my org are. But we're all like, they're always a lovely group to finally, if you want to push yourself out to do a bit of salvage gameplay or group gameplay, multi-crew, they're always very lovely, and we're always sort of on there talking about salvage, and we welcome new players. And also, happy birthday, Lucira, who I was playing with just before I found out I was supposed to be on this podcast. So, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. A special one. Eradicator.
Yes,
Where can they find you?
I'm mostly on YouTube, but also on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, even Dailymotion. And you'll find videos of news, gameplay, and some machinimas as well if you want to see a Star Wars recreated in Star Citizen. It's also the place to go.
Yeah, I've seen that. How is that going?
It's hard.
I mean, you're filming, it's basically a whole machinima, right?
It's the entire movie, yeah.
That sounds like a... Wait, which movie? Hold on.
A New Hope.
Gosh. That is a lot. I've seen some of it, though. I've seen some of what you were doing, and it did look really good. But
yeah, there's already 35 minutes done, and a new chunk of 20 minutes coming in May.
trying to shoot any sort of machinima in Star Citizen is kind of a painful journey. It's like even the my favorite machinima was Adrift, and those guys, they stopped working on episode 2 because they ran into glitches that just didn't allow it.
It's a lot of workarounds, and you have to sometimes, the game just won't let you do anything, or you're losing your characters because for some reason you start the game with a character that's completely different from the one that you started with, or your inventory is gone. You spent tens of hours gathering all the props and costumes, and it all disappeared.
And then it's just 30Ks and you're done. Well,
yeah.
Good luck to you with that.
Thanks.
I'm sure that's going to be pretty cool, and I'll be keeping an eye out for it when it comes. Folks, thank you again for joining me, everybody. If you are interested in these fine YouTubers here, please consider checking them out on their own channels. I'll leave all the links down below for you if you want to enjoy that. But this has been episode 9 of Citizen Central. A pretty good talk. I think we got to some pretty decent subjects and covered some good stuff. If you haven't heard the whole thing and you're jumping in halfway through, definitely go back and check the beginning. It's pretty good. But that's about it. Thanks again one more time for coming, folks. Thank you all for watching and listening. This will be up live on YouTube and audio platforms coming out next week. We do it at the end of every month, released at the beginning of the next month usually. And if you would like, you can always come and watch them live if you are a supporter in our Discord channel. So one last thank you. Guys, it's been great. We'll see you all next month. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.